Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. She said she'd never choose me again. So I rose from my seat and left in total silence. I didn't expect that sentence to land the way it did. Not because it was loud or cruel, but because it was said so calmly, like a weather report. We were sitting across from each other at a small oak table in the back corner of a cafe we used to love. Her name is Elodie. Mine is Rowan. We'd been together for 9 years, long enough to know each other's coffee orders without asking, long enough to forget how to ask the harder questions. Elodie stirred her drink slowly, eyes fixed on the foam, and said, "If I had to choose again, I wouldn't choose you. No anger, no tears, just certainty." For a moment, the room kept moving while something inside me stopped. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because my body didn't know what else to do. I used to believe love faded loudly. Fights, slammed doors, raised voices. But this was different. This was quiet erosion. Months of small dismissals, missed glances, conversations cut short. I had told myself it was a phase. Work stress, growing pains. I kept showing up, kept adjusting, kept bending, thinking commitment meant endurance. If you've ever stayed too long hoping effort would be returned, you understand that kind of math. You give more, expecting balance to appear later. It rarely does. If this part of the story feels familiar, tap like so it reaches others who might need to hear it too. We met in our mid-20s. Elodie was magnetic in a soft way, curious about everything, always asking why. I was steadier, quieter, the kind of man who built routines and kept promises. She once told me that made her feel safe. Somewhere along the line, safety became boredom in her eyes, though she never said it outright. I tried to talk. Not dramatically, not with ultimatums. Just honest sentences delivered gently. "I feel us drifting. I miss being close." Each time she nodded, promised we'd talk later. Then later never came. The distance grew polite. That's the most dangerous kind. When resentment learns to wear good manners. Across that cafe table, her words finally gave shape to what had been happening for years. She wasn't confused. She wasn't unsure. She had already left, just hadn't stood up yet. What surprised me wasn't the pain. It was the clarity. There was a strange relief in knowing the truth without having to dig for it anymore. I looked at her hands, the same hands I used to hold in crowded places, and realized I was negotiating with someone who had already made peace with losing me. Pause here and tell me in the comments. Have you ever been told the truth so calmly that it hurt more than shouting ever could? I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I didn't list my efforts like receipts. I understood, in that instant, that convincing someone to choose you is the opposite of being chosen. Respect doesn't grow where pleading lives. So I stood up. I pushed my chair in quietly. I left cash on the table for my untouched coffee. Elodie looked up, surprised, as if she expected a debate. I offered none. Silence was the only honest response I had left. Walking out felt heavier than staying ever had. Each step carried 9 years of shared mornings, inside jokes, plans that would never be used. But beneath the weight was something new. Space. Dignity. The kind of calm that comes when you stop fighting reality. Outside, the air felt sharper. I breathed deeper than I had in months. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. And sometimes that's enough. People think strength looks like winning arguments, but sometimes it looks like restraint. It looks like choosing silence over performance, boundaries over explanations. It looks like trusting that walking away without applause still counts as courage, especially when your heart is bruised and your pride is quiet and steady resolve. Before the story continues, type the word clarity in the comments if you believe walking away can be an act of self-respect. That night, I didn't go home right away. I walked past streets we used to wander without a destination, past windows glowing with other people's lives. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't angry. I was observing, like someone stepping out of a long-running play and finally seeing the audience for the first time. Elodie didn't text. I didn't expect her to. Silence had already become our shared language. But this time, it wasn't suffocating. It was clean. I realized how often I had filled quiet spaces with effort just to avoid discomfort. Now I let the quiet exist on its own. Back at my apartment, I noticed things I'd ignored for years. How calm it felt without anticipation hanging in the air. How my shoulders dropped when I set my keys down. I slept deeply, without replaying conversations, without rehearsing what I'd say differently tomorrow. There was no tomorrow to negotiate anymore. Over the next few days, people asked careful questions. Are you okay? What happened? I gave simple answers. Not because the story was small, but because I no longer needed it validated. Some losses don't need witnesses. They need space. I thought a lot about choice, about how love isn't proven by longevity alone. You can stay somewhere for years and still not be chosen. And when someone tells you plainly that they wouldn't choose you again, believing them is an act of self-trust. There's a myth that leaving quietly means you didn't care enough. I've learned the opposite. Leaving without spectacle often means you cared so deeply that you refused to turn your pain into a performance. You honored what was real even when it ended. If the story stirred something in you, consider sharing it with someone who might be sitting silently in a relationship that's already ended. Sometimes a mirror helps more than advice. A week later, Elodie finally reached out. A short message. I didn't think you'd actually leave like that. I read it twice. I didn't respond. Not out of bitterness, but because the moment for conversation had passed. Closure doesn't always come from dialogue. Sometimes it comes from consistency with your own boundaries. I started rebuilding my days. Not dramatically. Small rituals. Morning walks. Cooking meals I liked without compromise. Saying no without guilt. I noticed how much energy I'd been spending trying to be chosen instead of choosing myself. That's when I understood something important. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. And the opposite of self-respect isn't weakness. It's self-abandonment. I had done that slowly, politely, over years. Standing up from that cafe table was the first time I stayed. Let's talk in the comments. Do you think silence can be more powerful than confrontation when it comes to protecting your self-respect? Why or why not? I don't tell this story because I think I was perfect. I wasn't. Relationships fail for many reasons, and responsibility is rarely one-sided. But I do know this. No one deserves to feel optional in a partnership they're fully committed to. Today, when I sit across from someone, I listen differently. I pay attention to consistency, not promises. I notice whether care shows up without being asked. And most of all, I trust the moment someone shows me where I stand. Elodie once asked me what I wanted from love. I didn't know how to answer then. Now I do. I want mutual choice, quiet loyalty, effort that doesn't need convincing, and the courage to leave if those things disappear again. If you're still reading, maybe you're in your own quiet moment. Maybe no one has shouted at you, cheated on you, or wronged you loudly. Maybe you're just slowly fading in someone else's life. If so, remember this. You're allowed to stand up without explaining yourself. Before we end, drop a comment with one word that describes what you'd choose if you trusted yourself completely right now. And if this story resonated with you, like the video, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe. Not just for stories like this, but for conversations about self-respect, clarity, and choosing yourself without apology.